In this video, we're going inside 8 substances that can change your brain and your body, each in its own way. From your morning cup of coffee to one of the most deadly substances in the history of modern addiction. Stay with me. We're starting with the most widely consumed psychoactive substance on Earth, something sitting in almost every home that nobody even thinks of as a drug. Caffeine. It's in coffee, tea, energy drinks. People use it to wake up, focus, and somehow survive the rest of the day. Simple, cheap, legal almost everywhere. And then, the first sip. The game begins. Within about 20 minutes, caffeine reaches your brain. It starts blocking a chemical called adenosine, the signal that tells your body it's getting tired. Caffeine basically shuts the door on it. Your brain didn't suddenly get stronger. It just became harder for it to feel how tired you actually are. 30 minutes to an hour later, your focus starts climbing. Your thinking feels faster. You feel like you're operating at a higher speed than usual. But your body, your heart rate goes up a little, and your brain feels better. Not because you suddenly created more energy, but because you temporarily pushed the feeling of fatigue into the background. It's not real energy. It's delayed exhaustion. And after a few hours, the caffeine starts leaving your system, while all that built-up adenosine suddenly comes rushing back in. And suddenly, you're twice as tired. Maybe you've got a slight headache, and one thought starts taking over your entire brain. I need another coffee. And that's where the real trap begins. It's not just that you like the taste of coffee. Your brain has learned that every morning comes with a little reward called caffeine. So skip it for a day, and your body basically sends you a complaint letter. Headache, fatigue, low energy. And what do? You take another dose. Not because it makes you feel better than before, but because it makes you feel normal again. Now, caffeine obviously isn't dangerous in the same way as some of the other substances we're talking about, but it teaches us the first important lesson of this video. Addiction doesn't always start with something powerful. Sometimes it starts with 1 cup of coffee every morning. And if caffeine is the easy doorway into dependence, nicotine is the doorway that gets a whole lot harder to walk back through. Nicotine. It's in cigarettes, vapes, and hookah. And people usually start out of curiosity, social pressure, stress, or simply because everyone around them is doing it. But after a few months, what started as something casual can quietly turn into part of your entire daily routine. 1 puff, and nicotine reaches your brain within seconds, faster than almost anything else we're talking about in this video. It starts activating specific receptors in the brain involved in attention and mood, and suddenly, you feel more focused and more relaxed at the same time. And that's the weird thing about nicotine. It can give you 2 seemingly opposite feelings at once. Your heart rate goes up, your alertness increases, and somehow you also feel calmer and more relaxed. A stimulant and a calming effect in the same substance. But that feeling, it doesn't last very long. Within an hour or so, nicotine levels start dropping, a little tension creeps back in, and your brain starts sending you the same message: I need another hit. And that is the real trap. Nicotine doesn't need to give you some massive high to keep you coming back. In fact, it can work almost the opposite way. It trains you to need another dose every hour or so. 20 times a day, 20 opportunities for your brain to learn the same lesson. I need it to feel okay. And that repetition is what builds dependence, not how intense the feeling is. And over time, your lungs can be damaged, your blood vessels can be affected, and your risk of cancer and heart disease rises significantly. But the hardest part? A lot of smokers know all of this and still keep smoking. Because eventually, the body doesn't need nicotine just to enjoy it anymore. It starts needing it just to feel normal. And the next substance? It's at almost every party, every celebration, and pretty much every Friday night. And yet, is one of the most dangerous substances we're talking about today. Alcohol. It's in almost every alcoholic drink. Some people drink to celebrate, some drink to escape stress, and some just want to loosen up. You know that whole just one drink situation that somehow turns into someone having the confidence to text the person they haven't spoken to in 3 years? Yeah, that vibe. After the first drink, alcohol starts entering your bloodstream within minutes. Then it reaches your brain and slows down an important area called the prefrontal cortex, the part involved in self-control and logical thinking. Basically, the voice in your head that normally goes, wait, maybe don't send that text, suddenly takes the night off. And here's the weird part. Alcohol is actually a depressant, yet you can feel more confident, more social, and way more amused than usual. Why? Because it isn't necessarily making you happier. It's reducing the activity of the part of your brain that normally puts the brakes on your behavior. So you didn't suddenly become the most confident person in the room, you just took the brakes off. By the third or fourth drink, things start getting messy. Your speech gets sloppy, your reactions slow down, and your judgment gets seriously worse. And that decision that felt like a brilliant idea 10 minutes ago, the next morning you're staring at your phone thinking, wait, I actually did that? Then morning comes, and your body sends you the bill. Dehydration, headache, nausea, while your brain is trying to clean up the mess from the night before. But the worst part? Anxiety can come back even stronger than it was before you drank. You drank to escape the anxiety, and the anxiety basically goes, "Good morning, miss me?" And this is where alcohol can trick your brain in a much more serious way. With every drink, your body tries to counteract the sedating effect by increasing its own level of activity to keep you balanced. If you keep drinking heavily over time, your body starts adapting to alcohol being there, almost like it has become part of your normal operating system. Which is why, if someone has developed physical dependence and suddenly stops, that balance can collapse. And this isn't just about feeling anxious or having a bad mood. Severe alcohol withdrawal can actually become medically dangerous. And over the long term, the liver can be damaged, memory can be affected, and relationships can start paying the price. Small excuses, small lies, small problems, repeated over and over until suddenly that little problem has its own entire file. And the strange part? Alcohol is legal in most of the world. But let's separate two things here. Legal does not mean safe. Otherwise, we'd have to start calling every legal substance healthy, and somehow soda would qualify as medical treatment. And the next substance, this is where things get even more controversial. Some people consider it relatively safe, others see it as dangerous, and both sides have stories, arguments, and studies to point to. The truth? Like most things in life, it's not black and white. So let's see what actually happens when this substance enters the brain. Cannabis, or weed. Okay, let's get into this one because this is where things start getting a little weird. The main psychoactive compound is THC, and people use cannabis to relax, manage pain, or just change the mood. Basically, I just want to switch my brain off for a while. Fair enough, but let's see what's actually happening inside that brain. Take the first hit, or the first edible, and THC starts interacting with a system in your brain called the endocannabinoid system. And yes, I know, that sounds like we just accidentally walked into a biology lecture. We didn't, I promise. This system plays a role in regulating things like mood, appetite, and even your sense of time. And when THC enters the picture, several of those systems can start changing at once. Suddenly, time feels slower, sounds and colors can feel more intense, laughter comes a little easier, and hunger? Oh, hunger has entered the chat. But here's the interesting part. The exact same substance that makes one person relaxed and laughing at something that wasn't even funny can make someone else feel completely different. Anxiety, a faster heartbeat, and that uncomfortable feeling of, wait, why do I suddenly feel like I'm losing control? After an hour or two, the effects generally start fading. You might feel tired, sluggish, and suddenly sleep sounds like the greatest invention humanity has ever created. It's not necessarily the dramatic crash you can get from some other substances, but your brain can still be left with this strange little sense of emptiness, like something that was filling the room just disappeared. And this is where the important part comes in. With frequent use, cannabis can become psychologically reinforcing. Your brain starts learning a pattern. Stressed? Weed. Bored? Weed. Don't want to think about this feeling? Yep, weed. You get the idea. And eventually, the substance can start feeling like the easiest escape from stress or boredom, instead of actually dealing with whatever is underneath it. With daily use, the brain can also adapt to the presence of THC, including changes in its own natural signaling systems. And that creates a pretty strange paradox. Someone can eventually feel like they need the substance, not to feel amazing. And for teenagers, this matters even more because the brain is still developing. Frequent cannabis use during adolescence can interfere with that development, but just to feel normal. And for teenagers, this matters even more because the brain is still developing. Frequent cannabis use during adolescence can interfere with that development. And heavy long-term use is associated in some people with chronic anxiety, and in certain individuals who are already vulnerable, an increased risk of psychotic symptoms. And I know, from the outside, cannabis can look like the mild one. But let's pause there for a second. Because any substance capable of changing the way your brain works can come with a cost. You might not see that cost immediately, and it definitely won't look the same for everyone. But your brain and your body, unfortunately, don't come with a little button that says, "Don't worry, I won't be affected." So far, we've been talking about substances that are widespread, some of them legal, and some so socially normalized that nobody even thinks twice when they show up. But from here, the story changes. In next video, we're stepping into a completely different world.